Welcome to the SynergyXR content studio. We're so proud of it.
Yeah,
nice to have guests in here.
It's really awesome. It's so cool.
I mean, Jacob's done a great job. Jacob and the team, great job. Yay! No, it's great. And you're in here early, so it's not 100 degrees in here yet. So
you
that's
said it
good.
will be really hot, so I'm just looking forward.
It will. And once you get all the lamps and stuff, and you get the camera and you get the screens and stuff. So no, it warms up. It warms up pretty quickly, but not yet.
No.
No, but welcome though.
Right
Thanks.
now it's nice.
Yeah.
And we also have water, so I won't dehydrate soon.
No, you're good, and we can get a refill on that if you want to. So, yeah, what brings you here?
Well, first of all, I think that perhaps a little introduction about who we are.
Maybe we should. That would be a good starting point. Absolutely. Do you want to go?
Yeah. My name is Jesper Toft, and I am head of sales enablement at AVIDLY. And for those who are not familiar with AVIDLY, we are one of the biggest partners in the HubSpot environment, and are like doing a lot of stuff around the HubSpot setup, which means that we are working with marketing, we are working with sales, and in my job particularly, I'm really into what is actually driving a decision. So that is why I'm looking at like new technology and new tactics.
Right.
And in that, like, when I was like doing a lot of research over the years about what makes people make decisions, the whole narrative about a product can be really difficult. And we know that some products are really difficult to understand. And like, I think it was a year ago, I was here with you guys, and one of your colleagues showed me a presentation about what you're doing, and my head exploded.
Yeah, because you actually tried it too, didn't you?
No, I actually haven't tried exactly.
You haven't tried it?
No, I haven't.
All right, we gotta make that happen.
Yeah, but I saw a demonstration. Actually, your brilliant coworker here in the
Jacob.
room.
There you go. There you go. Kudos to
Something
Jacob
that
again.
he was doing, and I was like, oh, bloody hell!
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Because I'm a visual person, and if I can't see it, then somebody has to draw it. I'm drawing everything, workshops, stuff like that. So I'm a really visual person, and what I saw was like, okay, now I understand it.
Yeah.
Actually,
do you remember what it was that he showed you?
Yeah, it was like a building and like turning it around, and it was so cool. It was so cool. So my experience of what you guys are doing here at Synergy is that it did something for me about understanding a difficult concept. And I just have a lot of customers that has exactly the same problem as I think I had prior to this one, that I don't understand what it is.
Okay.
Now I see it. Now I understand it. So the complexity of a company like you here at Synergy, and I really want to get your presentation as well, who you are, because it's such an amazing thing you're doing here. Could just benefit a lot of the companies that we're working with, and like companies in general that has a complex product or complex product.
Absolutely. So yeah, no, well that's great, and thanks for sharing. Yeah, so we're gonna get into a little bit who we are and what we do. Hey guys, my name is Corey Morris. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at SynergyXR. We're based in beautiful Aarhus, Denmark. We are one of the world's leading developers of XR software. So we're on the software side of things. And we've been doing it for a very, very long time, actually since 2008, which makes us kind of the whole XR pioneers in a way. Sorry, my phone's exploding over here. Let me put that off. But yeah, so I want to talk to us a little bit about who we are as a company, how we got to where we are. But our product is also called the SynergyXR platform. So I want to talk a little bit about the platform as well.
Yeah, and I think perhaps because you guys probably don't know what we're talking about here, and I know exactly what we're talking about here. Perhaps we should just frame a little bit, because we are talking about like virtual reality, augmented reality, extended reality. Perhaps you could like.
Should we just get into that real quick?
Yeah, I think that. What are we actually talking about here?
Yeah. So
and what are the different things that is actually at stake here?
Yeah. So just before we do that, I just want to give you guys a quick overview of who we are.
Yeah, exactly.
So I talked a little bit about SynergyXR as a company, but as a product, what we've actually developed is a super powerful no-code, cloud-based platform that lets companies do things like train, design, support, and even sell across all XR applications. So what I mean by XR applications, I'll explain that in a minute. But the good thing is that people can actually dip their toe into this without having to be tech whizzes, without having to be tech experts. And this is the first time that a company has actually introduced something like this to the market. We liken our product in many ways to what WordPress did for websites when they came out of 2 decades ago, I believe. Back then, people wanted to create websites. They could either go to an agency and have an agency do that for them, or they could, when WordPress came out, they were actually able to do that themselves. That's effectively what we've built for the XR space or the Metaverse, and I'll talk a little bit more about the Metaverse as well. Yeah. So that's our platform. Now, to understand a little bit who we are as a company, you have to go back to 2008. When our company was created. So our company was created by the same founders of Unity Technologies. Most people just name it as, or call it Unity, but it's one of these huge unicorns. It's based in San Francisco right now. The company was founded back in 2004 in Copenhagen, Denmark. So this massive company now, 6,000 people, and 90% of the games that you play on your iPhone today are based on Unity technology. So Unity is known for enabling 3D technology. So anyway, fast forward 2004, 2008, Unity decides to get into the gaming business themselves. They're really good at creating this engine, this gaming engine, but they want to get into the gaming business. So they create Unity Studios. We rebranded ourselves from Unity Studios to SynergyXR last summer. So we were Unity Studios. I'll fast forward through this journey, but from 2008 to around 2018, we specialized in creating custom solutions for some of the world's biggest brands to help them kind of venture into this whole XR space. So doing things like augmented reality before IKEA Place was even invented, and creating virtual reality experience for some of the world's biggest brands before virtual reality and before the glasses that we have today even existed. What we came to realize, though, is there's so much interest in this space. And it's so difficult for these companies to create this themselves. We can obviously build it for them, but it's going to cost them a fortune, and it also takes a long time. And anytime they want to make any type of changes to it, that's also going to be timely and expensive. Why don't we create an easier way for them to do that? And that's where the whole birth of SynergyXR comes from. That was the story. So we spent a few years building that, and then in 2020 we went to market with SynergyXR platform as you know it today. And just to give you a quick overview, what it basically does, we call it the Corporate Metaverse Builder. That may not make any sense right now. It will in a few seconds. But it's basically a do-it-yourself platform that lets companies work across augmented, mixed, and virtual reality. I'll explain what those are in just a few seconds. They can toss all of their content up into the cloud. So things like images, videos, PDFs, and then 3D objects. Effectively all the things that companies have already, especially those who work within any type of manufacturing or production. So there are other companies that are doing this as well. Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, and Google, they all have their own versions of this. Where we kind of differentiate ourselves from the others, that we're tailored towards businesses, because we know that businesses are super focused on control, privacy, and security. In much the same way that, you don't let people into your physical office, or you don't let people into your websites. The same thing applies to the corporate metaverse. So that's why we, for example, have a enterprise grade cloud storage and things like that. But so that's a little bit about the product. So I've tossed out enough jargon now where you guys are probably thinking, what in the world is he talking about? But most of you have hopefully seen the letters XR. XR can mean one of two things. It can be an abbreviation for extended reality, but X can also be seen as a placeholder for an A or a V or an M. Now, to explain it a little bit better, let's look at it on a continuum. So at the far left, we have augmented reality. That's when we take something and we just overlay it on our physical world. So most of you are familiar with, I'll just use this example because everybody knows it, Pokemon Go. So I take my phone, most people use their phone, and they're able to just see something. People also know it with the key of place. It allows you to see things, but if you actually try to touch it, you can't touch it. Still requires a device. Now, on the other end of that continuum, we have virtual reality. Most people are familiar with virtual reality because you put on one of these bad boys.
Yeah.
So this is a virtual reality headset. This is one by HTC. What this does is when you get into this puts you into a simulated environment that's obviously created through computer-generated graphics. Those graphics are 3D, and that environment becomes very, very realistic. Now, some of these environments are lifelike, so they look like the spaces like this. Some of them are really far out where they don't look anything like this, so they're very foreign environments. This is super immersive. This is less immersive. In the middle, there's this magical term that Microsoft, I think they kind of felt, we need our own term because we don't want to use AR, we don't want to use VR. We're gonna coin our own term. So they coined a term called mixed reality. Mixed reality is almost a mashup between the two, because imagine being able to have those glasses on, be able to see things, but still be able to see the world around you, and then use your hands to manipulate that data. That's where we're headed, actually, because you're not going to have people walk. I mean, people aren't going to walk around the streets wearing
I don't
this.
think so.
And we also know that the technology that we have today it's going to improve. It's going to get better. What we expect is that those glasses eventually will look like
My
your
glasses. Yeah.
And those glasses will look like contact lenses. And if you really want to go into the future and you kind of look at what Elon Musk is doing, that is also going to be connected to your brain somehow with some type of neuroscience. I'm probably not getting the words right, but that's probably where we're headed in the future. I'm going to stop there because I feel like I've talked a lot now. So
I think it's
I can
it's
really
important.
keep going if you want me to.
Yeah, but it's really important also because I think that also we are going to show some examples of these these things.
I think that's important, yes.
Yeah. So, but when you've seen this like development from like the first generation virtual environments, and I think that some of us tried to like move into second world when that was like
back in 2006. Yeah,
was,
I was there.
That was actually pretty crazy and like
Second Life, right?
Yeah,
Second Life, yeah.
And it didn't really hit it off. And so what has actually changed from back then to what we see now in order to say that okay, this is actually something that it might work. It will work. It's
okay. Yeah. So I don't know if this is true. Can I go? I'm going to go down to the basement.
Hi, Corey.
Yeah, we have tons of technology, tons of hardware. So this is one of the first headsets, and this is one of the recent headsets. This is from the same provider. This is from HTC. So a lot has happened since then. So one of the drivers, is that me or is that you?
Oh, that's me.
One of the drivers is the technology. So back when Second Life came out in 2005, you didn't have any type of VR headset. Not that I know of. If you did, it didn't look anything like this. It was very rudimentary. That's one of the key drivers. So Second Life was basically only experienced through a browser.
Yeah.
Another thing was that you probably didn't have 3G or 5G technology. So you obviously, maybe, I don't know if we had phones. I don't know, when did the first iPhone come out? 2007? Was that when the first iPhone came out? Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So the hardware wasn't there. You didn't have a phone experience, so you weren't able to have it mobile unless you brought your laptop around with you. Internet connections probably weren't fast enough. But one of the biggest kickers was that it was a little bit too early, because I believe the 3D technology they were using to do it wasn't ready yet. It wasn't ready. So it was very rudimentary. It was innovative and pioneering when it came out. I just don't think the rest of the world was ready.
No. So
it was 30 years premature.
Yeah. So again, it's like accessible for everybody, and the technology is there to support it. Are there any signs with the large corporations that you see that they want to? Sorry, I think I'll start somewhere else, because you're already doing this for a lot of companies.
Yep.
And they have adapted the mindset, and they are using it already. For instance, we are going to show something about training.
Sure.
A little later. So how do you see the technology move, for instance, into sales and marketing? And how do these departments adapt technology?
Yeah. So let's start with so selling complex products is really hard. And why is that? Because imagine trying to sell this. I can sell you this right now, maybe by me using words. I can use an image, but I'm not going to be able to show you this unless I brought you out to actually huge room, because this thing weighs 300 ton and it takes up a lot of space. If I'm going to actually get you close to this, that's going to be really difficult. You're going to have to travel. But what we're able to do with virtual reality is actually get you closer to products, often in the actual environment that they're going to be used. That's what whole XR allows you to do. So this is a really good example of, if you're tasked with trying to sell this, it's not easy carrying that around in a briefcase and saying, "Hey, let me show you this newest nacelle wind turbine engine." This is obviously just one example. There's tons of complicated things and complicated processes. Now, also, to be fair, it doesn't necessarily have to be big things. It can also be microscopic things.
Yeah, because I think it's the other way around. I'm working with a company that is producing, instead of like computer chips that driven by Intel, they actually have a biological chip, and I still find it hard to understand what they're actually doing. So it could also go the other way, that it's not the size, it's the complexity.
I mean, imagine if you're working in the pharmaceutical industry and you want to talk about how the chemical matchup. I'm not a chemist, nor do I pretend to be. But imagine you talk about the chemical component, but it's microscopic. The only way you can normally see it is if you look at it through a microscope. But then you're able to take the small and scale it up.
Yeah.
I'll show you in a second, we take a nacelle motor and we scale it down a little bit in a virtual environment, but you could just as well do the opposite as well. What we like to say is that, things are often difficult to sell because they're complex, they're complicated, they're large, or they're super small. There are lots of reasons why things are complex. And what we're going to talk about in a few seconds, it is not just about showing products, it's all about showing processes and how things work together.
Yeah.
That can often, seeing that one particular product in a much larger context, understand how it works, why it works, and so on and so forth, is also a part of let's just call it the sales process as well. So let's look at sales and marketing as some use cases. So we love to use the wind turbine industry as an example. Again, there's tons of examples out there, but this is just one example. So imagine I'm selling a wind turbine farm. I'm at a physical meeting with you. I'm not going to be able to bring an actual wind turbine with me. That would be physically impossible. I could, do like most people do, stand up and do a presentation where I have lots of decks and I show videos and I show images. But what I can also do using augmented reality is I can take my phone or I can take my iPad and I can actually show you that product on the desk right in front of you. That's a pretty powerful thing. And you can even show it as an animated form as well. And then just, for those of you who are out there, it's like, hey, I don't work in the wind turbine industry. How does this work for me? Replace this with your product as well.
It could be a crane, it could be a car, it could be
anything.
Manufacturing product. It could be
anything.
Yeah, robotic arms or whatever.
So this is from our product video, and this is me showing a team this wind turbine. We're actually in the meeting room. Now, we could take that one step further, because what we're missing here is the actual context. Remember, in this particular example, we're selling a wind turbine farm that's offshore. So wouldn't it be really cool if I could take that wind turbine right here and actually show it in the setting of where it's actually going to be? And that's what you're able to do here. So this is an example of a salesperson showing the developer what this is going to look like in real life, and they're actually they're in the actual spot where it's going to be built. It's impossible to do this in a sales scenario the way we think about it today. There's absolutely. I mean, could you imagine being able to do this
No.
without? Because you're looking at me like,
yeah,
really?
it's like,
Is it impossible? I think that's pretty impossible the way we think about the sales process today.
Yeah. At least we've seen a lot of examples of people like trying to print 3D or whatever to like, okay, imagine this being out here.
Sure.
And it's like, yeah, but people can't imagine.
Yeah, and we borrowed that from the world of architecture for many years because we do create these 3D models.
Yeah.
But you don't want to know how much time goes into actually creating those 3D models. And I'm not saying that this is a replacement for doing that. But when we're in the very early stages where we're trying to visualize what a product is going to look like, or project in this case is going to look like, this is a very simple, fast, and effective and also powerful way of helping people visualize it, because what you're actually tapping into, and this is something we haven't had before, is visual storytelling at a whole nother level. And the key component here is the ability now, because we have all this really cool technology, is 3D.
Yeah.
And, you know, thanks to the good people behind the iPhones and some of the other producers, you're able to do a lot of cool things with iPads and iPhones, but also on your Android-based phones as well, that we simply weren't able to do just a few years ago.
And again, because we've seen like a lot of examples of companies trying to compensate for the lack of imagination for their customers. And I'm perhaps a really good example as well, because again, if I don't see it, I can't really understand it.
Right.
And people can like continuously explaining things to me, and I just get more and more confused until I see it, and I get, oh, fuck. It's like that.
I want to show you another example real quick. So the first two, they were augmented reality, right? So this is virtual reality. So imagine I'm meeting with these same two people here. You can't see them here, but they're at the table. I'm showing them this. I can actually put on glasses, and they can be anywhere in the world. They can also put on their glasses, their VR glasses, and we can jump into a virtual environment, and I can show them that same model, but I can also show it at a much larger scale. So just so people at home can kind of distinguish between AR and VR, this is me on the left side with my VR glasses on, making the same gesture here. I'm the bald guy over here on the right. For some reason, my name is Jake there. I don't know. But these are the two people who I was meeting with in a physical space. So even though you and I are sitting here right now, imagine we're talking about this project. Let's just use this. I could try to tell you about it. I could show you photos of it. But even though we're in the same location, or if we were separate parts in the world, we could put on our glasses and we could go to another world, if you want to call it that. And that's the whole idea of virtual reality, because what I can do there, I obviously can't do in a real world setting. And I don't know if you noticed, but this is also a completely different setting where we're able to use images, we're able to use photos, we're able to use other 3D models to create a much larger context. So I think, again, looking at one particular product in isolation is one thing, but seeing it in a much larger context, I think it really boosts our understanding of why this product is important, and also maybe how it works. This is also a really good example, going back to the augmented reality, because these others were kind of examples that we were behind. This is the company called Kompan. I believe they're owned by Lego. They create outdoor playgrounds. Now, imagine being a salesperson and trying to sell an outdoor playground without being able to visualize it. What Kompan has done so far is they've had their super thick sales book, their catalog that they go out with. And they sit with a customer, they flip through, what if we put that? Now imagine if that was over there, or imagine if that was over there. So they came to us with that problem. We said, you know what, there's a much better way of doing that. Because you can take all of those models that you have in the book, you obviously have them there already, and you can put them in an app. And then your salespeople can actually go and choose those models, and then using augmented reality, show the person that you're selling it to what that playground
will look like.
You can pick and choose, like, oh, we want to have this merry-go-round over here, so just pop it in. No, actually, we don't want that. Let's move it over here. Let's replace with something else. Again, these are things that simply weren't possible just a few years ago. Let me show you this video just to
cool.
Give you a quick idea.
Kompan has something exciting to share. Say hello to our new augmented reality app, Imagine It. As a kid, using your imagination comes naturally. When you grow up, it's nice with a little help. Imagine It lets play take over. Simply browse. Oh wait, go back. That looks fun. Select. Place. Position. And rotate to see results in real time. Wow, pretty awesome. Now we just need a lifeboat there. Oh, and maybe some dolphins here. We want people everywhere to imagine a happier and healthier world. The only limit is your imagination, meaning goodbye boredom and hello playtime. A whole lot more of this. Definitely some of this. New places to play for the little ones, medium-sized ones, and even the bigger ones. Play around and let your ideas take over. Then start again from scratch. Just download the app and imagine it. Because if you can imagine it, we can build it. Kompan, let's play.
Okay, enough advertising for Kompan. So this was actually developed about a year and a half ago, just as a testament to how fast the technology is coming along. Now you don't have to download an app. Now you can do it directly from your browser.
Oh.
We actually just this week launched a whole it's called Web AR solution. So most AR solutions today, you have to download an app on your phone or your tablet, and then you have access to it. But now you're able to do it directly from your browser. So can I do a shameless plug?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if any of you guys are out there, you have a website or you have some type of web shop where you have your products and you want people to be able to see them in augmented reality and be able to see them in their homes, then there is a solution out there so people can do that. Feel free to have a conversation with us and we can guide you the right way.
Yeah. Because as also we say here, there's a onboarding and training process because if you have a good experience understanding the product, and it's a complex product, of course you need to figure out how to onboard and training. And I know that there are a lot of companies that has already adapted this technology in training their technicians, for example.
Yep.
I had a project back in the days with MHI Vestas where we were going into a nacelle in the ocean.
Okay.
And I was standing up there. Actually, I was standing directly on the ground.
But you felt like you were there.
And I had this, so I couldn't fall out.
Okay.
And I was standing up there and I was looking down on the support ships and I was looking at seagulls and it was raining and it was crazy. And we actually had people that was actually getting a little bit sick because it really screws your mind.
Right.
So what are the good use cases for onboarding and training when you already have sold the product and you need the customer to adapt it fast?
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing is that you sell it to the company. The others, you have to sell it to the employees as well. They have to understand how to use the product. So onboarding and training can be quite a few things. I mean, you can train people into specific products and how to use them. Another way of looking at onboarding is, for example, new hires, and you want to bring them in so they can understand, what your product is and how it works at a much larger scale and how it creates value to not only your organization, but also to the rest of the world. I think it's important, though, to kind of start, what's driving VR in onboarding and training? Why are people so interested in it right now? Because it has kind of really taken off over the last few years. Again, there's a lot of things going on behind that. Three of the key drivers are the fact that companies are really struggling to find skilled workers today, and especially with companies that have high turnover of employees, where if you spend maybe months on training them and then they leave after a few months, it's incredibly expensive. But imagine being able to do that without having to use side-by-side learning. People can train whenever they want to at their own pace. That's obviously a huge advantage there. The other is the fact that you have remote workers. We're not only talking about blue collar workers here. We're talking about white collar workers. They also need to understand, for example, what a product is, how a company works. Why let's talk about the company culture. Just for example, we no longer have people coming to This isn't worldwide, of course, but there's a lot of organizations experiencing where they're not going to have employees coming back to the office every day. Airbnb just came out last week and said Brian Chesky said, hey, we're not going to have people come back to the office. He, even went so far as to say, and I'm not quoting him, that the office as we know it today is basically dead. This isn't worldwide yet, but this could be where we're headed.
We see it everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's something that will happen eventually.
So being able to not being able to follow the traditional model where, for example, you bring people to a specific location for training, or you bring them to your headquarters for onboarding or training or upskilling, that's probably something that we need to rethink. And the last is the fact that it's proven to be super fast and effective. It's a way of communicating using the power of visual storytelling that it's simply a tool that we haven't had yet. One example, because I think it's best to exemplify this with a concrete case. So Grundfos, which is the world's largest manufacturer of pumps. So we're talking about not just small pumps, huge, big boy, big girl industrial pumps. They use virtual reality to onboard and accelerate the learning process for new hires. So Grundfos makes pumps. They obviously want people to understand how the pumps work, but for new hires, it's more important for them to help their new employees understand how water flows from the ground with the help of their pumps and how it actually gets into their homes. So in other words, the entire, let's just call it the
supply chain.
The supply chain. And I think that's important to help new hires understand, because it's not only great we make pumps, but why do we make pumps?
Yeah.
How do these pumps actually work? How do we get water from the ground into people's homes? Because at the end of the day, I mean, they're a water company. At the end of the day, that's really what their value is to provide drinkable water to the world. The pump is in many ways just an enabler. So what they would typically do is they would bring new hires to this waterworks place that's out here in Denmark. It's a physical place. You can see it up here in the right-hand corner. Obviously, so you can see their pumps, but you can see their pumps being used. What this does is this place, just so you guys know for context, this collects all the groundwater from the local region and it redistributes it to home. But even for me, I'm like, I don't understand what that is. So what they did is they created, and they were one of the pioneers in this, they created a onboarding and training experience in virtual reality where they took, I think it was the equivalent of like 200 slides that they would use in a traditional classroom setting. So just so you guys know, what they would normally do is they would bring people to the main headquarters in Bjerringbro, Denmark. Kind of no offense to people who live there, but like in the middle of Denmark. Yeah. They would bring them there and they would put them in a classroom setting, and an instructor would guide them through this. They said, you know what, there's a much better way to do this, in part because they couldn't actually bring people there during the pandemic. So they created this experience. And with the help of a lot of the materials that they already had, because this was basically just a pilot, it was a proof of concept. So with the help of a lot of the visuals that they already had, and with our help, we helped them create some 3D models, which kind of showed, for example, you'll see it in a second, it's a cross section of a pump and how it pulls up groundwater. They were able to bring employees who were spread remotely around the world, bring them into a virtual reality training and onboarding scenario. And it saved them, just this one session, it was a pilot, saved them $25,000, both in terms of saved travel costs and time costs. And this was just a pilot. Grundfos has 19,000 employees. Yeah. The scalability of this is off the charts. But let's just look at this real quick if we've got a few moments. We don't have to see the entire thing, but just to give you an idea of what it looks like.
Grundfos, the largest pump manufacturer in the world, are taking their onboarding to a whole new level with the help of virtual reality. To make it easier for employees from around the world to better understand.
Yeah, so that cross section enables them to see everything from a much bigger picture. Yeah. It helps them connect the dots in a way. So this is the waterworks place, and now they're actually in the waterworks place because we helped them build a virtual representation of the waterworks. So instead of actually having to go there physically, they can go there virtually. Now, this clearly, just in the interest of full disclosure, this isn't something that most companies have, but if they want to have it built, then it's possible to build it.
And I can see, again, a lot of use cases because I've been working with a lot of different companies over the last, let's just say, 10 years. also doing a lot of like leadership training in large international companies. And what we actually saw to be a huge downside was that external consultants knew more about the companies and the strategy than the actual employees were doing, were knowing about.
That's painful to know, but
That's
there's
so
probably a
painful
lot
to
of
know.
truth behind that.
And I think that like people understanding business, understanding what are we actually doing here, makes so
The
much.
why.
Yeah, the why, and
why.
also what are my role
Yeah.
in like
Yeah.
in this case,
Yeah.
hydrating
Yeah.
humanity or eventually selling yogurt.
Yeah.
If you are
Yeah.
a
You're
dairy
not just a cog in a machine.
No.
Even though you may only do one thing every day, that one thing you do
Yeah.
is super important to the entire process.
Yeah. So I think that the understanding of why am I here and what is that we do, because looking at a pump doesn't make any sense, but looking at a pump in the context makes absolutely sense.
Yep, absolutely.
So
that was one of the
really-
key takeaways as well. And this is what Christian said. I think I mentioned this before. Is like we can only fly so many people to Bjørnebo, Denmark. We're 19,000 employees, so it makes a lot of sense to do more projects virtually. And he's actually hired by Grundfos to lead their XR program.
Oh.
That says a lot about the changes we're seeing in the organization. I think just over the last few months, we've seen so many people have these titles of like head of XR or Metaverse lead or whatever. Nike just appointed their first head of Metaverse. So as the market matures, we're also seeing new jobs open up as well. But it's also an important thing to take note for all you guys in your organizations, that one of the reasons Grundfos has so much success is because they have a dedicated team to make sure that they embrace this new technology, but also that they find meaningful ways to use it in the organization.
I mean, perhaps that's a good bridge to like, okay, what is that you actually need to get started with? With working with this
so
type of
I think
project.
It obviously depends on every organization. We get this question a lot. I've had a conversation with somebody. They're super excited. They understand the technology at least enough so where they want to get started. What we often tell people is start with identifying a need. It's not something you should just bring in your organization just for fun. I mean,
it's not a gadget.
Apply it to something meaningful. And as I talked about before, try to look at your value chain. It's like, is there anything we want to optimize? And the question I would ask, is there anywhere where we may have gaps in our communication and our shared collective understanding that can be accelerated, that can be improved through being able to communicate visually, but also being able to bring people together? Because bear in mind that right now we're very dependent on team meetings or Zoom or whatever your weapon of choice is. But imagine being able to bring people together in a design process, a sales process, a training process. That's something you may want to start looking at. So I would say identify a need and start with a pilot. Start with a proof of concept. There's no need to envision a huge digital transformation strategy with XR from the very outset. That doesn't make any sense.
So it could be like, how do our engineers show a good use case for our potential customers, engineers?
Yeah. It could be also, how if I'm working with sales and I'm working with a product that's really hard to visualize via screen, or I'm sick and tired of using PowerPoint, or it's costing us a fortune to create these 3D models every time. Maybe that's a good place to start. And instead of starting with your entire sales team, start with one product and maybe a few accounts. So really, take it small and then grow from there. Get as many learnings as you can. Find out where in the organization you may have traction. You'll quickly identify people within your organization who are super excited about this. That's also really important. Is to, one side is you probably want to start building a case. So identify your key performance indicators and make sure you have some goals. And they don't always have to be, they don't have to be numbers. I mean, they can be just, how do people feel about it? What's the general feedback? So that's one side of it is to build, think about building a case. The other is start thinking about who's the team that's going to lead this. Where we often see success in companies is that you have some type of executive buy-in, an executive sponsor, if you will. That certainly helps. The other is a project lead. So somebody who's super enthusiastic about this, super tech savvy, who can see the entire project from A to Z. And this isn't necessarily the end user. This is just somebody who can oversee the project. And obviously, because it's a piece of technology, your CIO or somebody overseeing your IT, it certainly makes sense to get them involved, because they're going to want to see things from a software perspective. They're also going to want to help you manage your hardware as well. I think if you can build the right team, you can identify a need, you can kind of think about how you want to, kind of focus in the future on how you want to build a business case around this, have some goals in mind. I think that's a really good starting point.
Yeah.
What we tell people, though, is advise people it's better to start now than to start later. The early bird gets the worm.
And also, I think that you know the the technology as it evolves.
There's tons of learnings here
Yeah.
to gain. I really hope that people don't see this as a bubble, as a trend, and hopefully they see it as the next iteration of the internet. I don't think anyone can deny the fact that the internet is a very integral part of our daily lives. So if this is the next iteration of the internet, then obviously the people need to start taking this serious. There's lots of components of it. There's lots of BS out there right now you could probably ignore. I'm not going to get into that. We'll save that for our BS podcast or our next webinar. There's a lot of hype right now, but there's a lot of truth behind that hype. And we know that because we've been doing this since 2008. So we have almost 15 years of experience. We followed the technology. We've been driving the technology. And that's also one of the reasons why we're super excited about it. Yeah.
And we, for instance, we can see that we are using ourselves videos whenever we present something.
Sure.
Because, well, people can get a PowerPoint with, this is what we're going to offer you, but they can't remember why did we put this in and not this one.
Yeah.
So, for instance, when I send out a quote, I have like a 10-minute video of me explaining the quote.
Yeah.
That's so old-fashioned in a way.
Yeah.
And
well, isn't Aristotle, I think it was Aristotle, don't quote me on that, who said, tell me and I'll forget, show me and I'll remember, involve me and I'll understand.
Yeah.
I think that was something to that effect.
Yeah.
And that's effectively what this is.
Yeah.
But just, you mentioned you guys are using videos. Think about how difficult it was just 10, 15 years ago to produce a video on your own.
Yeah, it was.
You had to be a whiz,
crazy.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, the technology wasn't there. And now you can basically go to tons of websites
I
and
just
easily.
use my browser. It's
Well,
so
you've
easy.
got this. You've got cameras in our hands now, but
Yeah.
also just in terms of the software, there's so much available today. The same thing is happening on the XR side of things, and that's also why we're trying to do what we're doing, is to make it easier to create these platforms that are as easy as what we're so familiar with on our phones today.
And will this also be the same for, like, of course, I think that if you want like the really big Grundfos setup, it's not something that is you just don't do it. But how easy is it to get started? If let's just say that you have like a good need, you also have a good executive sponsor, you have a project manager, you also have somebody who's tech savvy.
Right.
How easy is it to get started? How much do you need to like?
All you need to do is just have your content available. Again, we try to liken it to WordPress is maybe a slightly outdated example, but if anybody's familiar with these platforms like Wix or Squarespace, where you can easily design and build your own website, it's very similar to that. If that analogy doesn't work for you, then think about PowerPoint. So we've effectively created these templates, so where you have 10 virtual environments out of the box. You go into those, and then you take the content that you have. So your images, your photos, your documents, or your 3D objects. Again, most if not everybody have these already, and you toss them into the cloud. Put on your glasses, and suddenly you have access to them. You can drag and drop. You can do it yourself. You can also get us to come in and help you. We have XR designers. That's also a new title. There aren't that many people who have XR designers, but designing in virtual reality, it's some people find it natural, some don't. And the same thing is, like, what's really cool is that same content you can use in a virtual reality context, but you can also use the same content if you just want to show people something on your phone. There's the other component, mixed reality. We don't have to get into that, but we think that what we've built and the way we're thinking about things is by far the easiest it's on the market today. Absolutely. So I would say if you bought our product today, you could technically be up and running within an hour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So like we're like almost done with this session.
I feel like there's so much more we could dive into.
Yeah. But you said you had like
I do.
So, but I think that, okay, we have a lot of viewers now, and what if they want to get started with SynergyXR? What should they do?
So I think there's two things. One is they can go to our website, and we have the option to try for free. I suggest you guys go sign up, give it a 7-day trial, and just kind of see if it's a good fit for you. We do experience, though, that a lot of companies, they understand the technology, they've maybe tried it, but they feel as though their organization isn't ready. So actually what we offer is, and something we get a lot of interest in, is these things called XR strategy development workshops. And what we do is we go in and work with some of the senior management team. It could be either at the board level, it could be at the CEO level, it could also just be at a project level, where we help them do a needs assessment. So all the things that I was talking about before, we kind of go in and we guide that process. Also help them find a use case for a proof of concept or a pilot. Help them identify KPIs, but also put it on a project timeline. So kind of help them with the whole project management side of it, and then put together the right team. And then obviously, you know, we want them to use our product. It doesn't necessarily have to be, because there are lots of good options on the market right now. But this is basically a primer. This is to help them get started. And I do believe it's quite important to have some strategy, some plan in place, instead of just buying the technology and then hoping and praying that it's going to work, because that's not really going to set you up for success.
Cool. Guys, man, it was such a pleasure being here.
It was a pleasure. Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for coming in.
I'm so much looking forward to get the feedback from all the viewers and what they think about it, because I definitely believe this is not the next step. This is already here, and we need to adapt to how buyers are purchasing.
I couldn't agree more.
So thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for the conversation. It was good. Take care, guys.
Yeah.